Hello, I have got a little grey rock in my hand. Can you imagine why this little grey rock would hold important significance? Well, it does, and there is a very good reason why. But first of all, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Sandy Johnston, and I am an abundant life coach, consultant, and energetic healer. I am also the host of the Tiaras Tears and Triumphs podcast. Now, this podcast reaches out to victims and survivors of abusive relationships. So in my podcast, I have lots of amazing guests and we talk about all different topics in relation to narcissistic relationships or abusive relationships and different types of abuse and the red flags to look out for. And just I really go in depth on this topic. I am a survivor of an abusive relationship, and I have thankfully come out of the other side, broken free from that cycle of abuse. And I now help other women to do the same and to heal and recover and rebuild on the other side of abuse, all of which is possible. I don't want any woman to be suffering alone in silence, thinking that there's no way out, there's no way forward. There can be, and there is lots of help and support out there to help you to start a new life free from the abuse and to be safe and just, get onto a healthy path, which will then help you to attract the right type of people into your life, help you to learn how to put healthy boundaries around yourself so that people who are narcissistic will not be able to come in and use and abuse you. Now, coming back to my little grey rock that I'm holding on to here, you might be able to see that it's in the shape of a heart. Now, I found this precious little grey rock on one of my walks, and I will often, pick up little treasures on my walks like this little grey rock. And there are two things that this little grey rock symbolises to me. One is it's in the shape of a love heart. And because I help women who have had their hearts broken, this symbol of love is very, very important, because you need to be able to heal your heart on the other side of abuse and know that you are worthy of love and respect and dignity. The second part of this little grey rock is, and what it signifies or symbolises, is a method called the grey rock method. Now, if you think about what a grey rock is, what does a rock do? A rock doesn't do much. It doesn't really move when it's sitting somewhere unless somebody picks it up and puts it somewhere else. So that's all I'm going to say about this little grey rock and the grey rock method. But I have just finished doing a series on my podcast, Tiaras, Tears and Triumphs. And the series is on, the first in the 3-part series is on gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is another term used for coercive control, which is psychological manipulation or psychological abuse. And it's a term that gets thrown around a lot these days in relation to this type of abuse, but people don't always have an understanding of what it actually is and what sort of things would be happening to somebody if they were being gaslit by somebody else. And so I thought it was really, really important to cover this aspect of abusive relationships, which will often go on in an abusive relationship. There are many different forms of abuse, but this psychological abuse seems to be present in a lot of abusive relationships. And the types of things that will happen is that a victim will second guess themselves. They'll lose their sense of judgment. They'll lose confidence in themselves. They'll lose confidence in their judgment and their ability to judge situations. And this is all part of the psychological manipulation that goes on. So that was the first in a 3-part series. The second episode in this series is on love bombing. And love bombing is another one of those terms which is being used very frequently these days. And again, people aren't always clear on what love bombing actually is and what sort of things to look out for with love bombing, because we all crave love. It's actually a very normal part of being in a relationship, and expressions of love are also very very normal in a relationship. So what actually qualifies something as being love bombing? Because when you think about it, can somebody love somebody too much? What does love bombing mean? And I go into depth about what love bombing is and the types of strings that are attached to those expressions of love that are shown when love bombing is a part of a cycle of abuse. And that is the other part of love bombing, is that love bombing is part of an abusive cycle. So there are behaviours in that cycle which are abusive, and after those abusive behaviours, there will often be the love bombing part of the cycle, which is where the abusive partner will make, platitudes of, false promises, and make apologies for the things that they have done, and also lavish you with gifts, and it's all quite sort of excessive, and it is to compensate for the damaging things that they have done. So that's in a very sort of brief overview of love bombing and what love bombing looks like. But I've gone really in depth into love bombing in this series, and if this is something that you suspect may be happening to you, or you just want to have some more information about love bombing, so that you can be, a better judge of love bombing, and what to look out for, especially if you're in that cycle of dating. If you've been in an abusive relationship before, and if you have come out of that abusive relationship and you have not gone to a level of healing in your own life, you're very, very vulnerable still to another narcissist coming into your life. And if this is you, if you are back opening up your heart again, exploring relationships again, this information is great for you to know, so that you can go in with eyes open when you are exploring another relationship with somebody else. That's a whole conversation for another time. But there are lots of different reasons for people to actually be informed with this information and to have this information. So I just encourage you to tune into this series, because I have tried to really go very in depth on these topics. And the last part of the series is about this little technique, which is absolutely brilliant in its simplicity, and it's called the grey rock method, and it's a form of communication. So this form of communication is very, very simple. As I said, I do say in this episode that this method may not be for everybody. This is one of the things about abusive relationships. They're very complex, and what works in one situation will not necessarily work in another. And so it's very important when you explore different things that you might try to improve your situation, that you might try to break the cycle of abuse, that you are very mindful of your number one priority. And I will always say this, that the most important thing to consider is your safety. Because without your safety, you're very much at risk. So it's really important every step of the way to put your safety first. And I have other episodes that sort of talk about safety planning. There are lots and lots of resources online, which I would encourage you to explore. And if you're not safe in researching things online from your technological devices, because there is a risk that there is internet stalking, or you're being, technologically stalked. There are lots and lots of there's apps, with tracking apps. I've just lost the term for a second, but tracking apps are very easy for perpetrators to access, and they're quite easy for them to put onto your devices. And this is a very real consideration for victims of abuse, to be aware of this risk, and that to basically treat your technology as not being secure in case it isn't secure. So my recommendation is that if you are unsure about whether your ex-partner or your abusive partner is spying on your devices, whether that be to the point of just looking through your text messages, but I'm talking also about having passwords into your email accounts, or passwords that access different accounts that you have, or getting spyware onto your apps, which helps them to see what you're doing, when you're doing it, where you are, and it leaves you with little privacy. And a big part of cycles of abuse, if you just remember that the perpetrator is coming from a standpoint of having lots of insecurities, and so their insecurities are the things that are driving their crazy behavior. So it's driving their abusive behavior, it's driving their jealous behavior, it's driving all of these really unhealthy and dangerous behaviors. So just treat your technology as being unsafe if you are in an abusive relationship, and start using technology that is safe. So when I say that, it could be that you might need to get a new phone if you can't afford a new phone. I know that there are organisations out there who help to provide victims with replacement phones in those situations. And there's also, I would say, one very simple thing, and it might be hugely inconvenient to you. And this is when I was in the cycle of abuse, it ended up being like a full-time job for me, trying to just I describe it as being in damage control. And so I would feel like I was constantly in damage control. So I would find that, an account had been accessed, and then I would be trying to figure out how to resecure that account. And If I needed to try and do something securely, it meant that I could not do it on any of my devices, and I'd have to do something like go to a public library and use their technology, which meant that was, more time out of my day. And these sorts of things, these are very real things that victims pressures that victims live with, and that they've got to navigate in terms of trying to keep themselves safe and have some privacy in their lives. So with this grey rock method, the thing is that, as I said, it's not a one size fits all. Okay, it may work for some people and it may not work for others. But it is well worth listening to this episode. And, you know your situation better than anybody else knows your situation. You know your abusive partner better than anyone else knows your abusive partner. So you know the types of things that you might be able to explore and see whether these things may work for you or not. So, but, knowing what it was like for myself when I was in that situation, I know that I had to get really resourceful, super, super resourceful to be able to navigate trying to get through. And as I said, get through being in damage control all the time, and knowing that I could never get one step ahead, but I had to try my very best to try and keep up at the very least with all the sabotaging and abusive behaviors that were happening. So for me, I would love to say I'm so, so sorry that you are dealing with this, because it's an absolute nightmare. But you can get through this, okay? And the way to get through this is to not suffer in silence alone, okay? If you are going through these things, please know the way to get through this, the way to get the help that you need to break the cycle, is to get support, okay? It's to get help and support from people who have experience with this, because there are a lot of people working in a lot of different areas with lots of experience who know how to help you, okay? So that's, my word of encouragement to you, that I know that there seems to be no light at the end of this tunnel for you, but there can be a light there for you, okay? And I know how hard this is. I know how exhausting this is. I know how much you want it to just stop. And it can stop, okay? You need to get some safe boundaries around you to help protect you and help for this behavior to stop, so that you can have some peace back in your life again, which is what you deserve. So from my heart, I send you lots of love and lots of light. Please reach out if you want to connect with me. You can, all things me can be found at my website, which is www.sandyj.com.au. Or please feel free to anytime to tune into my podcast, Tiaras, Tears and Triumphs, because it is a free resource, okay? You don't have to worry about money when it comes to the podcast. You can just tune in anytime you feel it's safe to, okay? And I am trying to pack as much helpful information into that podcast as I possibly can. Each week there is a new episode going up. Each week I'm trying to provide more value, more content to help you, okay? And I also have a Facebook group, okay? The Facebook group is called Rise Up with Tiaras, Tears and Triumphs. So you can find that Facebook group either just by looking up Rise Up with Tiaras, Tears and Triumphs. Please just request to join. And I will, you know, go through and accept you into the group very happily. That group is a support group. I upload new content all the time. There's lots and lots of encouragement going into that group. There's lots of positivity, there's lots of inspiration, and there's just lots of support in there. So please, you're very welcome to join that, or you can just go to my Facebook page, which is Sandy Johnston, and just send me a friend request. If you're a victim or survivor, if you want to DM me and just let me know that, so that I can give you some special help and support, and make sure that I know that, you know, I need to give you that special attention. Please don't feel as though it's any trouble for you to reach out and let me know that, because my heart is right there, and that's why I'm doing this, because I really do want to help you. I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to break free from the cycle of abuse that I was in, and I did get my window of opportunity, and it wasn't easy, but I did break free, and, you know, and my life is wonderful again now. I'm really, you know, I truly am so happy in my life. I'm so grateful for everything that I have. And if I can help any woman who is going through the things that I went through to have that opportunity to get their life back again, then I'll do that. I really want to be there and help and support you. So, all right, that's enough for me. All those contacts and links that I mentioned before, I will put those in the notes for this video, and that's about it. Okay, I send you lots of love, lots of light. Don't forget the grey rock method. Okay, all right, take care and stay safe.